8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Come on, come on, come on. How you want it, cognac or Patron? Brunch with the boys, we gon' give you what you want. And what you don't know, we about to put you on. Come on, come on, come on. How you want it, cognac or Patron? Brunch with the boys, we gon' give you what you want. And what you don't know, we about to put you on. Yes, we are the trending topic. We relationship prophets. Brunch with the boys, we the hottest. Brunch with the boys, we the hottest.
Yeah, what's going on? It's your boy King Des here. Another episode of Brunch with the Boys. Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Easy. What's good, everybody?
It's Mr. Gent, and you don't want no problems. Yeah.
How can you cry and simultaneously say you don't want no problems?
It sounds like a cry?
Why? Because you got all of them?
Sounds like you got a lot of problems.
Finish eating your kale and Brussels sprouts and...
Kale, spinach, Brussels sprouts, and blackened chicken. Get some.
Yeah,
where's that from,
good.
though?
Where's this from?
Yeah.
Fresh Kitchen, baby.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Shout out Fresh Kitchen.
Shout out to Fresh Kitchen. This ain't sponsored, so if y'all want your name shouted out, y'all can give me some free meals or something.
I know that's all it's about for you.
Big ass don't need it, but yes, please. So listen, we getting into it today, y'all. We getting into problems every couple will inevitably face. I thought this was an interesting topic because, hell, if it's inevitable, we might as well talk about it.
Right.
Everybody should be handling these.
Well, eventually, right?
You know what I mean? Well, not everyone, because some of y'all ladies, you can't find a man. And, you know, we understand. And listen, there's some of you fellas out there can't find a hoe either. Go uglier. She's there. She's available, I assure you. Stop aiming so high. Don't even aim at your level, fellas. Okay, I just want to throw that out there real quick. But the first problem that every couple will inevitably face is you will learn that your partner can't really be your everything. And I thought this was the most important, really, because when you get with someone, your first thought is, you're my everything. Why choose one person if you aren't getting everything from them? Safe to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think every man or woman in a relationship is, if they're going to be with someone long term, or they're selecting that person to be not their boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, or eventually that ultimate goal of marriage, you want that person to be everything. I think that's almost like a prerequisite for you to even take it to that next step.
And they listed everything to be soulmates, BFFs, a sounding board, financial and career advisors, sexual partners, and parenting partners.
I mean, that's a lot.
It's a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah, but I think that's ideal. I think if you can find that and you can strive towards that, that's, even if you fall short, I think you're pretty close to perfection, at least as far as what you want in a relationship.
And I talked about this earlier with someone, and one of the things that you just said stands out. It's ultimate that you just strive to achieve these. It's not that you're necessarily gonna hit on all marks, but I mean, man, this is a lot of things when you really think about it. A relationship is almost contractual. Like, that's a lot of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you sit there and think about it, though, but the reality is that trite cliche expression of the 80-20 rule, you got to try to find someone who can meet 80% of, those wants, desires, needs, because no one's going to be everything, and you got to be comfortable with that 80%. And that 20%, you got to chalk it up to the human factor. It's as simple as that. If you can be all right with that, I think you could be prosperous. To your point, the focus needs to truly be on, is that person going to continue to try as hard as they possibly can to be your everything? Mm-hmm. But you can't expect that for them to be 100% your everything. You agree, Jeff?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I think what's important to some people may not be necessarily important to others. So I think the way you got to navigate relationships sometimes is you have to find out what are the 4 or 5 most important things I cannot do without in a relationship, and have that be your foundation. And so everything else you get, it's almost like icing on the cake. You just trying to motherfucker that can give you the most icing, but meet those foundational requirements. And I think you set yourself up for at least somebody you're compatible with, at the very least.
And I think that's the biggest trap and downfall in a relationship. And I think it takes time, and you gotta just grow up a little bit and realize that it's a fairy tale to be 100%. And if you're going to constantly think about trying to have your mate to be 100%, you're never going to be happy. You're going to be a frog leaping from every lily pad to another lily pad, and it's going to be a never-ending story. You're just going to be chasing dreams, and that's a hard life to live, bro.
And one of the things they said in the article was that all of these needs need to be addressed by a variety of people, including yourself. So some of these things aren't on your partner. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can seek financial advice and career advice from other people. You don't need to go to your spouse about that. You know what I mean? Who the hell are they anyways? You know what I mean? That being said, you might, get a little bit better advice elsewhere, but even a sounding board, that doesn't always have to be a wife.
But I think they need to be interested. They got to put enough energy that you feel like they're being supportive in some way, shape, or form. So if you're not good at that, don't feel like, okay, I'm not good at that, so I'm just going to be a void when he comes or she comes and is looking for someone to, give an opinion, give some commentary or whatever. You have to have at least that energy and that care that you feel like that person gives a fuck about you.
That's the truth.
Okay, so an example of one of the things that they used was just an introvert being with an extrovert. In that case, the introvert wanting to be at home often and stay in, you have to fulfill your need for extroversion through other people, hanging out with your homies and what have you. But one of the problems with this to me is sometimes this can create a disconnect in the relationship. And, it's okay to be different, but when those differences start to impede on your needs, you know what I mean? It can really hurt the relationship.
Well, what's the point of being in a relationship when you on one side of the spectrum and the other person's on the other side of the spectrum?
Agreed.
I mean, you're going to create that dysfunction out the gate. Why the fuck are y'all together? Mm-hmm. If I want to be out at the club and dancing and chilling and vibing, and all you want to do is snuggle and watch Netflix every weekend, then what's our middle ground? What's our middle ground?
Applebee's.
I'm just saying, maybe you have other things.
2 for $20s.
You always talk about it. You can have other things in common that base your relationship, that are your foundation.
But that's a huge one, though. For example, if you like to be out and about and you're active and you're energetic, and the person that you with is sluggish and prefers to just always chill in a singular spot,
you don't have to be lethargic to be an introvert.
To that point, you're going to get your energy being alone, basically. Introverts get their energy being alone. Extroverts get their energy around people. So if we have two different sources of how we get our energy, what's our middle ground, though? Mm-hmm. Like, she gonna come to the club with me sometimes? She don't want to.
And I think when you're an introvert in a relationship, it's different than just being an introvert. So she's gaining energy from not being alone. It's when she's with you. So it's one thing, it's just about her not wanting to go and kick it in that environment, but when it's you, she is more open and she is different and she is sharing. So it's more about what you two have going on versus what's going on outside of your relationship, if that makes any sense. She's okay with you going out with your friends every weekend, yada yada, because she knows once you guys come home, it's you time, and that's what you guys have, and that's what's important. And all the other stuff, just like you wouldn't care if she's at home making goddamn breeding frogs and shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why she do that, but people do that shit. So again, are you wrong because you're not interested in that, and you could both have your interest and do what you do, but what you do share, you enjoy, and it's bonding.
I think it depends on, we're talking independent of spectrums, right? And it depends on where you are on the spectrum, because here's the thing. It's cool if she's more introverted, but she's okay with you going out and having fun with your friends and all that stuff. But when I'm not with my friends and I'm with you and I want to do some extroverted shit, are you going to be down
That's
or
a
are you
good
not
point.
going to be down?
I'm
right?
sure, yeah,
And the
that's
bottom line
different.
is, to your point, some folks inside or outside of that relationship are going to be so introverted that you're not going to get them to leave that bubble. To Jeezy's point, though, some folks, it depends on that relationship and their role in that relationship. So I think you kind of got to decide when you're choosing the right person for you, if that's something that is going to hinder your enjoyment in that
I
relationship.
guess there is levels to this shit, but she better create a velvet rope at the house, man. Put on some music and put on a club dress and drop it down low, Tatiana. You know what I'm saying? Like, it got to be like that.
I don't think I need that. I think if I can, when we want to go see a movie, if there's a special concert or maybe a sporting event, and she'll come out for that, which I'm sure she will. Goddamn, I said she was an introvert. She's not a goddamn Mormon. Like, she, you know what I mean? She leaves the house and shit.
Mormons
You know
leave the
what I
house
mean?
too. She's not a hermit.
Hermit. Yeah, I'll take that. I stand corrected. My bad.
My bad, Mormon.
You know what I mean? But my point of the matter is, with that in effect, when it comes to other things that she doesn't care so much for, VIP in the club, yada yada yada, she never hinders you, nigga. She irons your outfit, man, and sends you out looking right and gives you some money and all.
If she put some money in my pocket, I guess.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all good for her. It's just something that she doesn't share.
I think you gave
a
a qualifying example though, in which kind of defeats the need for the conversation. If you pick a girl who is okay going out with you to special concerts and sporting events, then you ain't got no damn issue.
Yeah,
Like
that's
good.
straight.
You know what I'm saying? We're talking about the girls who are not willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And how that's going to play in your relationship, or somebody who's an extrovert, their relationship with that person. You know what I mean? Because you said, I would imagine she would. Well, you imagine a lot, because there's motherfuckers that don't like going out to public and like large events with lots of people.
Yeah.
No. Somewhere there's a husband who imagines he should get that pussy tonight, but nigga, we both know you ain't. True. Go ahead and grab that lube out of your nightstand.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
You know what I'm saying?
You please yourself tonight.
You know what I'm saying? Self-love. Mm-hmm. This one's interesting. Your phone will come between you and your partner. But what I found is that it's not necessarily in the form of infidelity, which we'll get to a bit later, but more from the perspective of your undivided attention. And I think we're so caught up in our phone, especially these days where, we on IG, snapping and social media, work email, because everything is digital. So you're working virtually and all that there. So
I'm super guilty of being so attached to work that I'm not too far from my device. So, and that's a big thing for me, that I had to realize that when you're with someone, that you need to be able to be cognizant enough to put that phone away and shut off for a little bit. But it's very hard, especially if you're a very driven, ambitious person. It's very hard to stay away from your device. But what I will say is there's other pieces of it. Another issue might be you call this person and you can't get them, or you text them and you don't get a text back, and the communication might be delayed by an hour, 2 hours, and you starting to feel like, dang, you can't pick up a phone, you can't text me back.
sounds personal.
I mean, no, I'm just being honest. Like, that could be a situation where, your device is a big means of communication.
What's the limit on that? A time limit as far as the text message goes? Because to me, I heard something Chris Rock said years ago. Maybe it wasn't that many years ago, maybe a year ago, but he said something about why relationships and marriages worked so well back in the days, because there weren't cell phones. So when you left for work, it was, I'll see you later, bitch, and I don't see you until later. There's no constant checkups in between. Hey, how was your morning coffee? Oh, did you take that walk that you always take at 10:22? You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're getting these play-by-play updates, and you're not really getting a chance to miss each other. So when you get home, they used to ask, how was your day? And it was a legitimate question. Now, it's almost a joke and rhetorical when they ask, nah, bitch, we done talked 6 times today. You know how my day was.
If it's at that level, but I guess I can see that aspect of it. But in these times and days, communication is so effortless because it's at your fingertips. To be able to say, man, you couldn't do that.
Who says you're supposed to be that readily available? Why can't you say, hey, I got a busy day today. I'll talk to you when I get off? Is that feasible? unless it's an
Okay, so
emergency.
do you wouldn't like a random text in the middle of the day saying I'm thinking about
No,
you?
I'm not saying I don't like. You know what? I do like that, and I will give that text. But what I don't need is a response within any certain amount of time for there to be no issues.
Let me just tell you,
because I wasn't busy, but that doesn't mean you weren't.
Okay, but if I text a chick and I say I'm thinking of you, and I sent that at 10 a.m. and she hit me back at 5, me too. Come on, man.
I gotta disagree.
You a sensitive ass nigga.
Yeah, you are
boy.
sensitive. Let me tell you something because I have absolutely gotten text messages from loved ones, my mom, my brother, anybody. I might get it at 10:30 and I'm busy. I'm like, oh man, I gotta hit him back. And by the time I get used to doing my thing, I'm in my car. It's 5:30. I'm like, oh crap, I ain't hit him back yet. Well, I hit him back when I get home. Yeah. So by the time I get home, it's 6:15, and I'm hitting you back. It wasn't like I saw your shit. I was like, yeah, fuck you, nigga. I ain't writing back. I had shit going on.
And if it didn't say emergency 911, you knew you could get to them later, and you did that. Right. You gave them that respect and that care. So to me, it's about respecting that person's time the way you want yours respected. A lot of motherfuckers want you to respect their time, all while not respecting theirs. And you can't ask for that and say, hey, I'm at work doing my thing, and you know what I do, and you know how busy I am, so it should be expected and understood, all while because you don't think I should be as busy as I appear to be today or often. Then it goes by what you say.
But let me just tell you, you used a specific word, and the word was expect. So the only thing that I would say on that is if you set the expectation that this is what it is, then everyone should fall in line. But if you don't set that expectation and you don't have that communication, of course that your phone is going to be a main issue in your relationship if you never had that conversation. So no expectations were set. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't see how that. Yes, if you don't have to talk about something, ultimately at the end of the day, you can't assume there to be, you know what I mean, an answer. There's no resolution. At that point, you have to have the discussion.
Yeah.
So, and expectations are motherfuckers, and we can even transition into that right there, because one of the problems couples inevitably face, another one, is that you won't meet all of your relationship goals. And that kind of leads to expectations. And one of the things that it says is, all goals won't be met, but some of those expectations may be exceeded. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in some areas, she may not be able to cook worth a damn, but she suck a mean dick. So what? Your expectations in sex are being met beyond what you would have needed. Whereas, hell, you mean you haven't eaten a home cooked meal?
I got a question.
Since you left your mama house.
Once your expectations are fulfilled, do you need anything that exceeds your expectations? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because your expectations are determined by you. Yeah. So you set the level of what you say. Okay, if I get this, I'm good. So if you get the shit that has you, I'm good. My point is the stuff that you get above and beyond that more valuable than not getting something else in the kind of...
That's actually a good point, though.
I think the answer to that is yes, you do. And maybe this is an oversimplification as far as an example goes, but if you take your car and you get a basic wash, it come out and say, hey, we waxed it, you know what I'm saying, moisturize your leather, clean your windows, et cetera, et cetera. They went beyond your expectations, but you definitely appreciate it, enjoy it, and now you're happier with this vendor. Maybe you're coming back now because they hooked you up.
You missed a part of my statement, though, because the other part of my statement is having that more important or more valuable than having what your kind of baseline requirements and needs in some other category where you're getting nothing, right? Because my point is, I'm meeting my expectations that I set for myself in this realm. So going from an 8 to a 10 is great, but I was cool with an 8. Down here, I expected to be at a 5 or a 6,
and you gave me a 1,
and I'm not getting shit, or I'm getting a 1. I'd much rather take that goddamn effort over here and shift it for me. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Reallocation at its best.
And that's when you start really breaking down whether you should be with that person.
Yeah, you start questioning a lot of things.
Yeah, because realistically, could you live without it? That's the question you got to ask yourself, because sometimes we place expectations in places that really don't require them. And we place them at a level far above what we really need, and they're more what we want. One of the things it said is keep your expectations as wants and not needs. And to me, what that says is if your expectations are wants, then you can kind of live with it not being to the perfect level that you wanted. Whereas if you place them as needs, anything short of that, and that shit spoke to me because I know for a fact that I've had expectations where they felt like needs. So if I didn't get the lingerie on a Saturday with, you know what I'm saying, some special type head and shit, that was a necessity. Yeah, because I don't want that Tuesday head hoe. No, I want you to do the tricks. I want you to take your time. I want you to be ready to be down there and shit. I want you to grab that pillow. Nah, come on. When she put her hair in a ponytail and put a pillow on the floor because she knows she's going to be down there for a while, you getting that on a random Tuesday? Sure, some Tuesdays, but that's not a typical Tuesday.
Okay.
I mean,
thank you. Come on.
You're making some sense.
Yeah, I mean, from some niggas, I guess that's true.
Yeah, most niggas. Most niggas. Don't come at me like that, man. You know what I'm saying? But
I do like that thought process in regards to if you turn it as wants, then if you don't get it, you don't feel a certain way. Let me just tell you, but if you have to do that across the board, I guarantee you're
settling.
Then you're settling.
None of this has nothing to do with it. But as far as the expectation of a woman being able to cook, how important is that to you?
I like to eat.
I know.
So dang, don't do me like that though. But what I will say is I also like to cook. What I don't want to do is I don't want to be the main cook all the damn time.
That's what I'm asking. So to what extent, how important is that? Yeah, nigga, I'm saying she can't cook. She's not.
I need that.
You need that.
Then I'm going to need that too.
On a scale of 1 to 10, like, as far as important goes, that's like a 7 or 8.
Yeah.
There's something sexy about it too.
Yeah.
Period. I cook and all that stuff. And I do all that.
Yeah.
But I want her to cook.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, for sure.
So I know, it was random.
Yeah. But y'all young niggas out there, you're not going to get that growing up. You're not going to get that when you get older, so learn how to cook.
A lot of takeout, Uber Eats.
And, you know, you need to learn your partner's love language. And I think that will help you with reaching your relationship goals and curb your expectations and make them more reasonable, you know what I mean, for your partner. And when it comes to expectations, I just think that you got to be fair with what you expect and with what you give, and you got to be reflective in that way, you know what I mean, because sometimes we can't place expectations all while not giving something to a certain extent, and maybe in areas where they looking at, you know what I mean.
Let me ask you a question. 2 people in a relationship, let's say we're talking, I'm basing this off something you just said, but I don't think you meant it the way that I heard it. So let's say you have 2 people in a relationship, a man and a woman, and the man or the woman, whoever, one of the parties is significantly more attractive, not just in general, but to other people than the other person is. And people would say, one of you folks is really wanting and dating up, and one of y'all is dating down. Mm-hmm. Based on, quote unquote, what the attractive party is bringing to the relationship, should the expectations of that person be greater and carry more weight based on what they're bringing to a relationship? Or no, once you're in that relationship, you're equal, and it shouldn't matter if somebody else finds you more attractive, if you're the rich person in the group or the cute person in a relationship, whatever that is.
I think there's 2 answers. There's the answer that says, no, it doesn't matter. You carry the relationship the same. That's what the public eye should always see. But I think between you and that person, they should know, like, no, I know I gotta, suck your toes because I ain't as cute as you are. You know what I mean? Like, I know I gotta do a little extra in the bedroom, or, bring it in here. Take care of your finance. You like when sugar mama buy you some new shoes. You know what I mean? Like, I know I gotta sweeten the pot in other ways. So compensate.
To answer that question, I think there could be some dysfunction as well, because if one person is significantly more attracted to a larger base, that's going to create some insecurity in the other partner as well. That could essentially start to cripple your relationship, because once someone starts to feel unstable in some way, shape, or form, and start getting those insecurities, they play out in a real nasty way in the relationship.
You could also use it to control them in a beautiful way.
You could too.
If you're a mastermind.
Yeah, if you're a little bit of a manipulator, you could definitely get them. Yeah.
Yeah, just saying. This one, to me, I mean, if you ever been into a long-term relationship, then you know that the sex isn't going to always be hot. It's not going to always be great. Sometimes it just feels like you're just doing it. You ever been in that?
I think everyone goes in a routine, yeah.
Yeah, no,
I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
Even when you're doing it, you're like, why? And when you finish, you feel like, man, I really could have did anything else.
I could have got a popsicle instead of that.
I could have did anything else with this.
I mean, routines are the death of success, man. That's just the reality of it. But you also have to understand that we all get into ruts in so many different aspects of our life. The main point is realizing and having some self-awareness that that's where you are, and just saying, hey, listen, we got to do something different. And if she or he is really like, yeah, I agree with you, let's turn it up, and you guys start going in a different direction, that's good. But when you have that conversation, and we've all been there, and shit still happens,
Yeah.
that's when resentment starts to take place, and you almost like, man, shit, man, someone out here want me.
Yeah. Somebody gonna get this dick.
Yeah, someone out here want me.
We're gonna learn
Evidently, you don't.
And being busy and having disconnected schedules, that can always contribute to it. And what happens is sex ends up being put on the back burner. So it's almost not intentionally, you had a long day, you had a meeting, you got late, they had to handle this with the kids, laundry. So by the time they lay down, and I've been guilty of this myself, she's had a long day, she's laying down at 8:39, finally. And I'm over here like, damn, so she can't sucking it off tonight, man? Like, god damn, bitch.
Yeah, it's one-sided. It's a one-sided.
And it's a one-sided view. So it's not necessary that they intend to do it. It's just more that it's being put on the back burner.
I just wish in that situation that they realized that they did you wrong that day, and then.
But did they?
And make it up.
I mean, in a sense, if you out there looking at her like, dang, with your dick in your hand, like, man, so you really just gonna go to sleep right now? And she's like, listen, baby, I'm just really tired, please.
Because there's different sets of responsibilities in a relationship that we talked about earlier. The sexual partner and the parenting partner. So she's played her role to such an extent. Like, how can you be? Why should you said it, Des. Should she have to make it up to you when all she did was hold the house down? Like, why should she have to make it? Because now you're holding her to a different expectation that through all of that, and I want that right then.
Again, it depends on the frequency and if that turned into a routine.
Yeah.
And if that turned into a routine, then we have a bigger problem. I think sex is typically on a man's top 3 things. So as a woman, wouldn't you think about making that a priority?
I think it's the top.
And if it's
What?
sex, you think it's top 3 for sure, right?
Maybe
Top
2
3, yeah, top
every
3.
day.
Yeah.
Maybe number
for
2
you,
every
it might
day.
definitely be number 1.
Yeah, for you niggas.
Not every day number 1, but every day I can always say it's in a strong race for second.
So that's fair though. But if you know that about a man, how could you fall into that death trap of not handling that?
Because they're a woman.
And not addressing that. That should be one of the main focal points of, that can't be a want. That has to be a need. If you're going to be in a relationship. And a woman needs to understand that is a need. You can scratch that off of the guessing game of which one is wants, which one's is needs. Trust me, that's a need.
But I think it's the same reason, and not to go if I don't know if this is the topic or not, but it's the same reason that people gain weight in a relationship. People stop doing what the fuck that they did to get you because they get comfortable. And then there are no consequences for the comfortableness that they're allowed to impact their behavior and their actions.
What happened if we put some consequences on there? What would that look like?
Bitches act right.
Sexual slavery?
That's tough.
I mean, that's what it would sound like.
I think that's a felony, but
I believe it is. I mean, that's the
You get 5 to 7 for that.
Come on, get out of here.
yeah, I think people would act different. I mean, but this is the thing: most human beings, most creatures, don't move without there being some consequence for inaction. So,
Isn't that the reason why law exists and police officers to reinforce, to ensure that, hey, you know that there's a consequence. You go in here and you rob this store, and there's a chance that you're going to get caught.
imagine this world if there were no consequences.
Oh my God. Sodom and Gomorrah.
Work for what? I ain't got nobody to fucking pay because you ain't gonna do shit if I don't pay. So everything becomes meaningless.
No one mean no in that world.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact too. No one mean no.
So that's what happens in these relationships, man. Bitches get comfortable, man.
And intimacy is important. And one of the things the article said is to make time to touch, even if it doesn't lead to sex. And I thought that was interesting. Holding hands, cuddling, things like that, creating that type of intimacy.
It's important.
And yeah, it may not pay off that night, fellas, but think about that Tuesday where you have to hold her, and that Wednesday you have to rub her feet. On Thursday, she gonna swallow your kids.
No, or you just fucking rub her feet because she's somebody you care about, and you're not doing it in anticipation of some goddamn payout.
That's very true. Very true. A relationship isn't quid pro quo, but I know that often. Come on, Des, you get into it, and you've been in a long-term relationship. It starts to feel like I need this. I need what I need in order to keep going too. You know, fuel for your car. You can't put it in when you want to. It's when it needs it. If that makes sense.
It didn't to me, but all I'm going to say is I don't like give massages to my significant other or rub feet for any other reason other than that. So if I need something in my relationship, any relationship I've ever been in, I'm confrontational. I'm like, hey, I need this. That I'm not getting this. And so if you care about making me happy, then you'll address it. Yeah. And if you don't, then you won't.
And I guess I didn't mean it from that creepy standpoint, but from more the perspective of putting her needs first and yours on the back burner, knowing that it'll all pan out and happen when it should.
And to Des's point, I think I agree in regards to the fact that you should do things without the thought of a payout. What I will say is if you're doing all these things, you're extremely thoughtful, you're always doing some form of acts of service, and you're being really consistent with that, and you feel like you're getting shit in return, yeah, you're not doing it for a payout, but eventually you feeling like, dang, do you even give a damn about me? And so it shouldn't ever be one side. And I think that needs to be like the biggest rule of thumb. It's all about balance and equality in some way, shape, or form. If you don't have balance, any type of imbalance is going to create friction. And I think that's that we got to handle right now.
Mm-hmm. Another thing is that your partner won't let go of their bad habits. And I thought this one was very, very interesting as well, because this is where love plays in mind, especially in marriage or really any long-term relationship. Without marriage, if you're committed, you have to let that love kind of take lead on this, because, you know, I've been in relationships where a woman, where she had to have her doors closed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The bed had to be spread a certain way. You know what I mean? You hear women all the time say the toilet seat needs to be left down. So, like, do you leave someone? Do you make an issue of that when you know that person isn't doing those things? You know what I mean? Or do you just accept their habits and love through it and just adjust your life around being okay with that?
What do you think, Dez?
I think it depends on what you can and can't deal with, right? And what's important to you. Yeah. So, like, I can't pretend to care about some shit that I really don't for some specified amount of time, because ultimately I'm going to stop giving a fuck and I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. And it's going to cause, to Jent's point earlier, friction in a relationship. When you're going into relationships, and obviously, folks, we're talking ideal situations, but when you're seeking your significant other, you should settle and you should make compromises. And I know it sounds like kind of cliche stuff, but the reason for that is not some pie in the sky reason. It's because when you choose properly and you don't settle and you really put forth into the forefront what's important to your relationship, and you scout, for lack of a better term, for someone who personifies those requirements for you, you make that subsequent relationship so much easier to exist in and to be a part of. When you don't do that and you take the first cute motherfucker who danced with you in the club, you setting yourself up for a whole heap of trouble.
Just because he bought you a drink.
And one of the things that
nigga Dante. Yeah.
One of the things we got to realize too is the fact that when we get in a relationship with someone, it doesn't matter what status you're in. If you want to be with that person, you're gonna have to deal with some shit. I mean, it's as simple as that. And if you're gonna accept them and you want to be with them, you got to accept some of their flaws. And it doesn't matter if they clip toenails and they leave it in the sink or something, or they leave it all over the floor, or hair is clogged up in the drain and you freaking hate that. It's one of those things that you can address and talk to them about. That's a bad habit. One of the things I can't stand is to hear people brush their teeth. It's like nails on a chalkboard. So, but if you know that I don't like that shit,
that's weird.
Then don't brush your teeth
completely.
Don't brush your teeth in front of me. Like, that's just as simple as that.
Nasty hoe.
How do you avoid not brushing your teeth?
You can go to the other bathroom.
God,
what if you're in a hotel room?
I'm gonna step out.
Are you serious?
Fucking kidding
I'll
me.
step out.
Jesus Christ.
I'll step out. I can't stand that sound.
You see?
I can't.
How you never you had this your entire life?
Yeah, I've had this my entire
How
life.
did you function in our house then?
Nigga, you notice I went in the bathroom when you were brushing teeth?
Because if you ever heard me brush my teeth, I'm loud.
You
as shit.
aggressive too. Like
You gotta be
gums are
good.
Gums are bleeding.
No, they're not bleeding.
Nah, if they bleeding, you got something else.
You got that
looking white.
gingivitis.
Yeah. If a nigga brush his whole mouth smooth,
That's not a. Come on, that's not. I tell my kids that all the time. They end up brushing. They look like they dancing. That's not a real brush, nigga.
right? You're not working.
Yeah, you're not putting in no work.
Nah.
There's no pressure being applied to that in there.
That's the nigga in the gym curling 10 pounds.
You know what I'm
He
saying?
came
Get
here to
the
be
hell
seen.
outta
He didn't come here to work.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
That's how you get them butter teeth. I can't believe it's not butter ass teeth.
I remember them. You scrape the cream off the top.
Come on, man.
Hell, that's disgusting,
Yeah,
bro.
it is.
Yeah, we gotta
Shout out to
stop
all my
that.
buttercreams out there.
Oh man, come on.
And they leave it on there too.
I don't know if it comes off
Protection
easy at
from
that
the
point.
sun.
Yeah. Money will come between you and your spouse.
Nunca. You can't let money come between
But
you.
in that way, just
It can,
basically that you will
You
have
got it.
financial issues. And I thought about maybe if you're rich, you wouldn't. But I think even if you have money, I think ultimately you'll disagree on how you want to spend it.
I think the question is to what extent.
Yeah.
Are you saying that if you're in a relationship with somebody to the point where your finances, where you guys have a right to have an opinion on how the finances have been spent, then obviously you're at a kind of a non-casual relationship. And my point is that if it happens 100 times and you disagree 2 or 3 times, well, yeah, technically there's going to be times you disagree. I think the frequencies. If you're disagreeing more often than not, or just as much as you agree, I think you have a problem. But
Yeah, and I agree with that. But if we sit here and think about those individuals who are not completely financially stable and they're in situations where it's hard to pay the bills, the lights be coming off every other month, that type of financial struggle does create issues within the relationship. You're almost like, why am I with this broke nigga? You know what I'm saying? Or
because
or
I'm
why am
broke
I
too.
with this chick that ain't bringing anything to the table? It creates that frustration because you're like, why am I here right now? Why are these things happening and it's you? And so you start to point fingers at each other because you guys are going through a struggle. That's why they say poor people have more fights over financial struggles.
It says financial stress is the leading cause of depression in men.
I can see why men though.
I think that's some self-imposed shit. So 2 things. I want to speak to what Jen said. Both my parents were poor when we were growing up, and I don't remember them fighting over money.
I remember mine do.
But my point is that clearly this shit is not it's not static because you do and I don't. So I don't think that every poor person sits in a situation is like, why am I with this broke nigga? I don't think people. I don't think that. I think people they fuck with who they fuck with. They marry who they marry. They're in a relationship with the person they want to be in a relationship with. And if you're in a good relationship, y'all striving to some better shit together. Yeah. So it's not what this motherfucker's doing for me and what I'm doing for this motherfucker. It's like, what are we doing for ourselves? The second thing is with regards to what was the second point somebody just made? You just said something, Jezzy. What did you just say again?
I had just said that. Talked about the
Financial stress being the number one.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think that's self-imposed. And Jezzy, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. I think people put an expectation on themselves. I don't think society puts an expectation on people. Here's the thing. I got kids. My definition of my kids being successful, me being a successful parent is when my kids get older, they're able to take care of themselves. It's not that my son's in the fucking NFL or they're millionaires. It's that they're able to take care of themselves and to enjoy their lives. So I think if you're a person that puts emphasis on having the biggest house and the nicest car, yeah, that shit's stressful as fuck. But if you nigga that's like, look, I just want a place over my head, maybe an extra bedroom for my kids. I want a car that gets me from A to B with a fucking navigation in it, and I want to go on a vacation or 2 a year.
I think you're perfectly correct. That is the expectation you place on yourself because every man has in his mind what he hopes to accomplish. Maybe what he wants ultimately versus what he wishes, or maybe with what he'll even settle with in the end. To your point, you definitely put that on your own heart, on your own mind, and only that will depress you. What depresses one person won't depress another, and you hear that. You hear someone says they're depressed for this and the reason. You can't even fathom it because that's not something that would ever take you to that level. So it's definitely self-inflicted based on those expectations or the disappointment maybe you're feeling in your own life. So
when I think about a relationship, the reason why people get in a relationship is to create some form of synergy. And when you're talking about synergy, it is mutually beneficial for both people. And the reason you're getting in it, whether it's pooling resources or whatever, or a shared vision, that's kind of what you're going for. But if you have this expectation or this shared vision and shit is going wrong and it's financially driven, it creates a fork in the road between two people sometimes, especially when I feel like we should be here and we're not here. Why are we going through this, and that?
Yeah, you're with the wrong person.
And you're starting to point fingers.
But I think it depends on where the financial issues are coming from.
Okay.
So I agreed on most of what you said up until that point. If your goal is with this other person is to have a resort or to have a business, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason that the funds aren't going well is because the bank is acting up or the marketing company isn't doing what they're supposed to do. And there is you guys can look at each other and says, we need to fix that issue. I think that's different than this motherfucker is blowing money that we don't have to spend, or he's irresponsible and we're not getting things paid on time and our credit is fucking up with the business. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think it depends. I think it depends on the source of the financial.
It's situational.
And to that point, you said something earlier about even our parents arguing about money. I don't think it was arguing about money. I think it was about struggling when you didn't have it, because there are a lot of things that went into that. Our mother's illness, losing her job, being unable to work, so everything falling on one salary. So it's a different thing to argue about money and where are you making enough, where it's coming from, etc. Versus, hey, we're adjusting to a life altering, a situation here to where now it is on one income and there is no help anywhere else. So it's more of a struggle than it is. You know what I mean?
So how about we focus on the main thing? And the main thing is stress. Whatever is causing that stress.
Financial of any kind.
Of any kind. Whatever is causing that stress can be a problem in the relationship. That's why it's called stress. And when you're stressed, you're not happy. When you're stressed, it affects you emotionally, mentally, physically, all those things. And when it takes a toll on you, it will take a toll on the relationship. At least that's the way I see it. Because that's the basis of stress.
It definitely can. And then also some of that plays into what matters to you. Some people are very financially motivated and money matters to you. So you said that earlier, Des, if you're a more simpler person and money, you're chasing it, so you'll probably be happier in a different situation. So it's levels to it. If you foresee this situation here where you're going to be living in, like you said, the Beamer, the Benz or whatever, it's just things you got to do. So you're just with the wrong person.
And Des, you tell me if I'm wrong with this though, but I mean, even if you have that high paying job, there's stresses that come with that. So, and those stresses can also start to trickle down and have effects in the relationship too. And I honestly do think the premise is really around how do you reduce stress in your relationship? Because it doesn't matter if you're someone who's comfortable with living at this mean or you're someone who's comfortable living at a much higher level. If there's stress involved, I think that's what you need to attack.
Yeah, I mean, look, stress is a derailer in any situation, right? Like it throws a monkey wrench into the process. What I'll say about with work and stuff like that is, once again, it may be because I oversimplify things, but I'm a simple dude. Here's the thing. When I leave work, and my wife can tell you that, when I leave work, I don't really talk about work. Like, and that just might just be a me thing, but I feel like I get up in the morning, and from the time I get up, I'm getting text messages, I'm getting phone calls, emails are coming in. I'm dealing with that all day. I get a specified amount of hours to myself and to my family once I quote unquote leave work. And I value that very, very much. And so when I'm relaxing with some wine or I'm hanging out, even if there's something going on, I might think to myself how to do it. And if there's something I need to bounce off my significant other, by all means, I think that's important for you to be able to do that. But when all possible, I like to talk about all the other shit that doesn't have to do with work, because
me too.
That's a good way.
And I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I hate defining. I don't like when people do it. And I don't define myself by my job. I have a great job. I have a quote-unquote high title. I make great money. And that's not how I define myself. That's a means of existing in this world that places value on money.
That is all it is.
At any point, I could get shit. The fucking economy failed, and you had to get shit through like fucking goodwill and trade and work for work and shit. I would much prefer that than the shit to do now because I work with I work with some interesting people. So
I like how you clean that up.
Yeah. Last but definitely not least is that monogamy will prove to be a challenge. Staying faithful is hard work. And you will ultimately be attracted to other people. And I think that goes for both sexes.
Facts.
absolutely.
Often they say in marriage, you start wondering, even in a relationship, did you make the right choice by being with one person? Have you ever had that? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Oh, did I make the right choice?
Not by the person, not saying nothing wrong with the person, but the marriage itself.
No, not for me. For relationships, maybe I have. I think you got to be. You got to be real fucking certain if you propose to someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't take that lightly. I didn't see a bunch of red flags and say, I can fix those. I can make it work. Like if I would have saw red flags, I would have been like,
Agreed.
at the very least, we need to date a little bit more. But I wouldn't have moved forward if there were any red flags to me. So I don't think the marriage thing is really uber complicated from that standpoint, at least for me.
I think my piece on this is there's a pitfall that you fall into as we're sitting here talking about. I know we opened it up talking about, hey, am I getting everything I want and need and all that type of stuff. The issue is when we start as men and or women start to feel as if we're not getting what we need in our current relationship, and then we seek it elsewhere. And oh, this person doesn't do this, but this person does that, and she's cute and she's fine and all that type of stuff. And then your mind starts wandering in that direction. I think a lot of that can be mitigated simply by communicating. And in that communication, that gives everyone a fair chance to make the appropriate adjustments to try to make that person happy or try to quench some of their concerns. And that is, I think, the best way to ensure that you're monogamous in your relationship. And if that person comes to you and everything falls on deaf ears, you're essentially pushing that person outward. And it's wrong any way you put it. I mean, any type of cheating, it's a cowardice approach. But the point is, that can be a catalyst.
You know, I think that the temptation to cheat physically is there for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that you can control whether or not your partner is tempted to cheat emotionally. Because to me, emotionally is more what you're not doing and how you're not listening and you know, giving that person what they need. And that's ultimately what leads to that emotional infidelity because, hell, you know, the other person has to listen in order to accomplish it.
I think you're right. You're right.
I think it's easy to, and the funny part is, too, it's not easy to keep your partner from cheating physically, but you can damn sure assist by keeping yourself up, keeping yourself looking good. And by that, they should be able to look at you and see a very good version of the person that they first met that led to that started this initial attraction.
At least the physicality of it as well. Like, I mean, if you're giving him all that he needs sexually as well, I think that's a big deterrent from even having to go elsewhere physically too. Not even, you know.
No, I don't want to know at least. I think you need that visual. And I think as men, we are visual creatures, and it's well known, well documented, and it's a part of the choosing process. You know, what we see, and it's not just what we know we can get. Yeah, your dick responds because you know her. She knows your body. She's going to get it to respond accordingly. But however, you have to be able to see her and get that same feeling to me. And that's what's going to help contribute from both fronts, really. One doesn't exist without the other. Without either, there will be no success. So I think you're definitely...
And I agree with you. What's strange is I don't know. I don't know how y'all feel, but what's strange for me is like I don't necessarily feel that the physical nature of someone is going to immediately turn me off and have me looking in another direction. I guess I just don't hold the same weight, no pun intended, on that. But I know others would, right? I like them thicker, so I like them thicker than a snickle. So for me, it might not be the same.
So you're okay with weight gain in any level as long as they're taking care of your needs sexually?
I don't think anyone wants a precious bitch. I mean, like that's.
You like to feed them though.
Oh, I love to see a woman eat. That's a fetish of mine, actually.
To fatten them up?
No, not to fatten them up, but to watch a woman eat.
What do you think the consequence of
You
that
out here
is?
manipulating these
What
women.
do you think the consequence of watching them eat is?
Yeah.
I mean,
Feeding them.
You want 3 waffles or 4, baby girl? What you want?
That's a lot of waffles.
it's
son.
not it.
That's a lot of waffles.
That nigga on a mission. He on
That's
a
a lot
mission.
of waffles.
He said he gonna be successful.
Weight is prosperity in many countries.
It is. It is.
Not this one though.
It is.
They
Isn't
want,
that hilarious?
they want a poor bitch here.
Oh my god!
Poorest bitch possible.
You know what the funny thing is? I'm surprised we didn't talk about communication being one of the major things that will be a problem in your relationship.
Yeah, that's primary.
What you think, Dev?
That's primary. I mean, you gotta. And I think Jeezy touched on it, maybe to a specific extent when we talked about love language. But I think in a larger scope, you have to understand how the other person receives information, processes information, deals with information. Because I think if you're with somebody who needs time to process and really understand maybe a conversation or situation that transpired, and you're looking for an immediate kind of feedback, that could cause some friction in that relationship that is simply because of a misunderstanding. And so I think it's important for you to understand how individuals react to stimulus and stuff.
And how they communicate specifically so that you're in the know and can be prepared. Because what you just said stood out to me. If you need a bit more time and you're the type to, chop it up a day or so later, I know I need to be prepared for that because I may need to talk about it right now.
Right.
And if you can't wait, and I think there's ways to compromise and some people can, but some people may find that that's not something that they can deal with. I cannot be put on hold and wait to
I don't do well
something.
with that stuff either.
So you got to know what you want and what you can deal with. And it's so funny in life what you can deal with today and what you can't deal with in 10 years. So, something you may, I can deal with that. That's nothing. But in 5-10 years, you know what? That's not for me. And that's a tough spot to put any person in because you've accepted it, you know what I mean, for so long. Yeah. So it's crazy.
The other part is, man, it's how receptive that person is to the communication too. Like if your partner feels like they can't even holler at you because they're in fear of an emotional response or the snapback or some passive aggressive approach or the fact that you're going to judge them or whatever the case may be, they're going to stop talking to you. And as soon as that well dries up, man, you might as well close that motherfucker down because the reality is no one's going to talk. And when you don't talk, that's when the emotional cheating could happen too, or you just dissolve the relationship because at the end of the day, it's not working. So communication that's why I believe in that best friend feel. Like, that's why I feel like people need to be friends first before they go into relationships because that communication shit is vital.
And that's where it comes from.
Homie love of friends.
And that's where it comes from. Well, that's all it comes down to, really. You got to face these problems. They're inevitable. You're not going to avoid them. Just be prepared for them so you can handle them accordingly.
Have an open mind.
And definitely don't argue. I always say I never argue over money. Simplify shit as much as possible when possible. And know your strengths and your weaknesses so you can work around them.
And I would say the love language thing, and I know we didn't touch on it a lot, but it's good to know those things because if you sit here and your woman or your man really wants different acts of service and all you doing is showering them with gifts and that shit don't really matter to them, then you're missing the mark and you're going to feel like you're being effective and you really ain't shit. You know what I'm saying?
Pay attention.
So you got to pay attention to some of these things. And the only way you're going to get that information is if you talk.
You know what I mean?
That's what it is. This Brunch with the Boys, where they going to find us at?
IG.
Instagram, Facebook,
Everywhere.
YouTube. We're on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, and so what. Episodes weekly, y'all.
We out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee and brunch. We can have our conversations over coffee and brunch. Ha.